No one warns you what grief does to a man's memory. Not the kind that takes a person from you in an afternoon. A fever, a carriage, a single wrong morning. But the slow work grief does afterward, when it reaches into the rooms of your mind and empties them one by one, until you cannot recall what warmth felt like, cannot remember the exact pitch of a laugh you once knew as well as your own name. That was what had happened to me by the winter I turned 38. I had forgotten, with a completeness I mistook for peace, how to feel anything at all. Ashverne Park sat at the edge of the Wiltshire Downs like a man who has stopped expecting company. 3 years since I had last permitted more than a skeleton staff. 3 years since any guest had stayed more than a night before finding a reason to leave. My secretary, Aldous, attributed it to my manner. My housekeeper, Mrs. Peel, attributed it to the east wing, which I kept locked. Both were correct. I had made myself into a place where nothing living wanted to linger, and I had called that an accomplishment. Then Aldous hired a new lady's companion for my aunt, who wintered with us every November and refused, with the stubbornness peculiar to old women who have outlasted everyone else's plans, to find me improved by solitude. Her name was Miss Corinna Mast. She arrived on a Tuesday in a plain gray wool traveling dress, with a single trunk and the unhurried manner of someone who has learned not to spend herself on impressions. I watched her cross the gravel from the library window. I noted that she did not look up at the house the way visitors always did. With that small flinch at its size, its silence, general air of accumulated cold, she simply walked in. I told myself this was unremarkable. The first time she came into my notice properly was 3 evenings later, in the library. I kept late hours. The staff knew better than to disturb them. Corinna Mast, it turned out, had not been told. She came in at 10:30 with a candle and a volume of her own, settled herself in the chair nearest the fire without a word of apology, began to read. I said, with the particular ice I had perfected, "This room is private." She looked up, assessed the situation with a calm that I found unreasonably irritating, and said, "I am aware, Your Grace. I will be quiet." And she was, completely. 2 hours, I did not ask her to leave. I told myself afterward that I had simply not bothered, that it made no difference to me whether she sat there or did not. I believe this with the confidence of a man who has not yet understood what he is lying to himself about. She came back the following evening, and the one after that she never performed sympathy. This was the thing I could not account for. Every person who had entered Ashverne in 3 years had performed it. The careful voice, the angled head, the way they arranged their faces into shapes, intended to show me that they knew about my wife, that they were sorry, and that they thought it must be very hard. Corinna Mast did none of this. She was not cold. She was simply present in the way that people are present when they have decided not to need anything from you. She asked me nothing about myself. When I was sharp with her, and I was sharp with her on several occasions, in the way you are sharp when something you cannot name is troubling you, she received it without flinching and without resentment, and simply waited, and the sharpness, finding nothing to cut, went out of the air. One evening in the 3rd week she looked up from her book and said, with no particular ceremony, "You organize the shelves by the year you read them, not by subject." I looked at the shelves I had lived among for 11 years and had stopped seeing. "Yes," I said. "That is a very specific kind of love for a book," she said, and returned to her page. I sat with that for a long time after she had gone. It is difficult to explain what it is to be reached by someone who is not trying to reach you. Every approach anyone had made to me in 3 years had been an attempt, a gentle assault on the gates, a hand extended with conscious kindness, and I had turned each one away without effort because I could see it coming. Corinna Mast made no approach. She simply existed in the same rooms I existed in, with a quality of attention that was not directed at me so much as simply open, the way a window is open, not pulling, not pushing, only letting in the air. And the air, it turned out, was exactly what I had sealed the house against. I began to notice things I had not noticed in years. The way frost made the walled garden look like a room made of glass at dawn. The smell of paper and candle wax, and faintly, something that might have been rosemary. The sound of the house, which was not silence exactly, but layered quiet. The settle of old stone, the rhythm of a fire. I noticed that I had been eating alone for 3 years, and that this was a choice, not a necessity, and that it was a poorer choice than I had imagined. I noticed, most distinctly, that the library felt different when she was not in it. I did not permit myself to call this what it was. I was experienced by that point in not calling things what they were. The fourth week of November brought a letter from my aunt informing me, with her customary lack of preamble, that she would be removing herself to London for the winter season, and that Miss Mast's post was accordingly concluded. She thanked me for the hospitality, by which she meant she had seen exactly what she had come to see and was departing in the satisfaction of her work. My aunt is 73 years old and has never in her life left a situation unmanaged. I read the letter twice. Then I put it down and sat for some time with the quality of light in the room, which was the low gray of a late November afternoon, and felt precision that startled me, the specific shape of what I did not want to lose. I found her in the library that evening for the last time. She had her trunk taken down already. The small belongings she had arranged on the side table, a penknife, a pair of reading spectacles, a folded letter of her own, were gone. She was finishing the last pages of a novel, with the absorbed patience of someone who will not be hurried at the end of a good thing. I stood in the doorway for a moment. I was aware that I was about to say something I had not said aloud in 3 years, and that it would require me to be, in some way I had forgotten the mechanics of honest. "You are the only person," I said, "who's come into this house and not needed something from me." She looked up. Not startled. I had come to understand. Very low capacity for being startled. "I should like to amend that," I said. "I find that I need something from you. I am not certain I can name it precisely, except that when you are not in this room it is a much smaller place." I paused. I realize this is an extremely poor speech. I have not made one in some time. The corner of her mouth moved. "You organized it well enough," she said. She set her book down, carefully the way she did everything, with a kind of unhurried attention that suggested each thing she touched was worth the time it took. She looked at me for a moment, with that open quality she had, the window and air quality, and I understood that she was not deciding whether she trusted me. She had already decided that. She was simply letting me understand that she knew what she was being asked, and that she was choosing freely. "Yes," she said, "I will stay." I do not think I knew fully how cold I had become until I felt it begin at last to leave me. It went slowly, the way frost goes from a garden, not all at once, but in the places where the light reaches first. By spring the east wing was unlocked. By summer there were guests again at Ashverne Park. By the following November, in the same library, beside the same fire, in a ceremony witnessed by my aunt, who had arranged the whole of it from the beginning, and was not remotely surprised, Corinna Mast became my wife. Thought, since, about memory, about what we choose to keep and what we let go cold, and whether the locked rooms of the heart are ever truly empty, or only waiting for the particular person who will not flinch at the door. I think they wait. I think every sealed place waits, however long it takes, for the one who will enter without needing anything, and by needing nothing, give you back everything you had forgotten you possessed. She gave me back the shelves, ordered by the year I loved them. She gave me back the frost on the garden, and the smell of paper, and the sound of a house that is not empty, only quiet. She gave me back the sense that warmth once lost is not gone, only waiting to be reminded.